Entering the Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience. Safeway Open DraftKings picks and preview. Maybe talk a little bit about the betting odds towards the end of the show. Of course, you can just hit the description for the time codes of this video or podcast. However, if you want to get into a draw for 20 DK dollars, two ways to do so this week. Number one, smash the like button for the episode. Leave your DraftKings handle in the comment section and tell me your favorite two players below $7,000 in the DraftKings player pool this week. Boom, you're in the draw. The other way to do so, subscribe, download, rate, and review the Pat Mayo Experience audio podcast. 5-star review, something nice about the show, and leave your DraftKings handle in that review. Winners announced every Monday on my waiver wire recap show live 1 p.m. Eastern time on the DraftKings YouTube channel and my Facebook page, facebook.com/thepme. Rick Gehman from DFS On Demand and the Rick Run Good YouTube channel joining me this week. Rick, I looked at the fantasynational.com simulator well after I had made all my picks and bets last week, and it spit out Sungjae Im and Sebastian Munoz as the two best plays. And guess what? I didn't use either of them.
See, the optimal strategy, Pat, is to look at that before the tournament starts so that you get them into your lineups, get some bets in on them, and make a lot of money.
Yeah, see, the big thing is I was really gung-ho about last week. I had a really good week at the Greenbrier. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to roll with my picks. I don't need to do any additional research on anything. So I made all my picks, and I submitted my lineups like Tuesday morning instead of, doing more research throughout the week. Big mistake.
Yeah, you got slapped on the wrist for that. That's a mistake you don't make twice in a row. I hope you're a smart guy.
Yeah, but football season really bogs me down. All my attention goes to that. Then I forget about golf. But hey, that's why you're here, to fill me in on everything that's going on. Let's talk about this course. Or if you just want to become a member at fantasynational.com right now, you get that event simulator. You get all the stats. You get lineup generators and all the tools you'll need to be successful. No picks on the site. You make the picks yourself. Just all the information and tools you will need to succeed. We are at the Safeway Open. It is Silverado CC. It's a par 72, a shortish par 72, actually. It's only 7,166 yards. The greens are POA. It is a smaller field than we've seen the past 2 weeks, only 144 players, so more players per player in the field will actually make the cut with this top 65 in ties. Initially, when we're looking at stats for this, Rick, it just seems like a pure ball strikers course to me, more weighted on approach than driving, but I need guys to be good in those two facets of the game if I'm going to think about taking them this week.
Yeah, absolutely. And the one thing that kind of jumped off to me, and maybe you have a little more insight on this, Pat, is I'm pretty sure these are tree-lined fairways. And if that's the case, not just being good off the tee, but also being accurate and hitting fairways is going to be key here. You don't want to get stuck in prison if you miss the fairway. So driving accuracy, not always something that I look at, but I'll weigh a little bit this week. And then birdie or better percentage, as it does a lot of weeks, showed up especially this week for me when I run that regression model to see where each stat ranks out. So birdie or better and guys that can hit fairways. But yeah, it's a ball striker's paradise.
Yeah, if we're just looking at the past 12 rounds, and I only did that because we're so new into the season that it gives us a really good short-term sample. You can extend the range if you want. But just to look at birdies or better percentage so far, the players coming in top 10 in the field in birdie or better percentage. Sungjae, no shock, number one. Johnny Vegas, Patrick Cantlay, Justin Thomas, Harris English, Adam Scott, Robbie Shelton, The Boz, Dominic Bazzelli, Hideki, Doc Redman are your top 10. Then there's Lonto, who comes in at number 11. We know that Lonto Griffin loves piling in birdies. I was like, I wonder how he's been doing through two events. Pretty good, I suppose. He's gained 13 strokes putting in the first two events. It's going to be tough to replicate, I think.
Yeah, I think that's hard to do. We also know that you love Lonto Griffin. I feel like his name comes up one time a week, and it's always it always seems to come from Pat Mayo.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite first round leader bets because he can get so scorching hot for a round. It just never seems to sustain itself for all four.
Yeah, trust me, I've got plenty of those guys. They're losers for the most part, but I like Lonto. But you're right, it's a lot of strokes to continue to stay hot with the flat stick.
All right, let's just jump right into the pricing because this field is shockingly good for the Safeway Open, formerly the Fries.com Open. But at the very top of the pricing, we have Justin Thomas. He's 11-6. Patrick Cantley's 11-2. Then Adam Scott, Hideki, and Sungjae Im, all above $10,000. Obviously, Sungjae lost in the playoff a week ago at Sanderson Farms. 2-1, Sebastian Munoz. I think this is the first time in the history of the PGA Tour that South Americans have won back-to-back events.
Oh, wow. That would be a great fun fact. I can't argue that. That makes sense. You have another fun fact because you mentioned fries.com and it triggered something for me. Do you know who won the very first edition of this event in 2007?
I want to say Tiger Woods.
Oh, that's like the default answer that would be good at. It was a layup for you. It was Mike Weir.
Mike Weir. Wow. This is back before he drove Ubers.
That's right. So 2007 fries.com champion, first event, first time this event was held.
Oh, wow. So, yeah, I guess, I don't know, it's in the Napa Valley, so I think a lot of people just like, hey, I can go play golf, get cut this weekend. It's a nice way for me and my wife to have a nice weekend. We can go drink some wine. It'll be fantastic. I think that is one of the allures of this event.
Well, yeah, and that resort, so this is like one of those resort courses where those guys stay there, like is unbelievable. I was this close to, I was going to stay at the resort, but I was going to head up there for a couple of rounds. I'll be at the Shriners next week, but this was a really, really good one. That's such a great spot to be for the weekend. And yeah, if you miss the cut, there's plenty to do.
So what are we doing here above $10,000? Like you have these huge names, and like I mentioned, Sungjae's coming off the runner-up finish. I always like to target the runner-up finish guys as they tend to keep that going throughout the next week. At least that's headcanon for me. Whether that's statistically true, I actually have no idea. You know what? I don't want to know. But a lot of players, they go from second. We saw it with Aaron Wise a few years ago. He came second at Quail Hollow, goes out and wins the next week. It just seems to be a good trend towards, especially notching your first ever career victory. That these guys can sustain this just a little bit. So of those five guys, like who do you think you would want to build around?
Yeah, I think there is something to just getting a little taste before you go out and eat the whole thing. It's, Sungjae has been so good and he does everything that we want. He's got the birdie or better numbers. He's trending in the right direction. It's just a matter of time before he goes out and wins. He showed up well here last year with a fourth place finish. Like everything to me points at Sungjae, but there's really someone that I don't think I'll be able to avoid, and it's Hideki. So he's sitting there at $10,500, and I think we can all agree he is one of the world's elite ball strikers. And I think we can all agree that he's always been held back by his flat stick. If you go back to his last 11 starts, he's actually gained strokes putting in 9 of them, which is by far the best stretch of his career. I'm wondering if it's just a little bit of variance, if it's whatever it is, but if this is a situation where Hideki is actually turning into a decent putter, or at least not a terrible putter, he's primed for a massive year. And he's got the course history to go along with it. He hasn't played here in a couple of years, but he backed up 3 straight tournaments with a 17th and 2 third-place finishes. So to me, I'm basically just all in on Hideki this week.
It's funny. You look at some of the bigger names that have shown up to play this week, and they're all very similar prototype players. Obviously, Justin Thomas is the best as he can actually putt. But then you have Cantlay, Hideki, and Adam Scott, they're all essentially the same guy with what they do well.
Yeah, it is interesting, and none of them have played to this point. I do think it's interesting to note, like the first start of a year for these guys, right? Some of these guys are teeing it up for the first time in a handful of weeks, maybe even a month. And what we've seen Justin Thomas do out of the gate is he usually gets off to a pretty hot start. Last year, he opted to start at the Tournament of Champions. He finished 3rd. The year before that, it was like 22nd at the Tournament of Champions. But the last 2 times he's decided to start his season here at the Safeway, he's backed it up with an 8th and a 3rd. So like some guys need to ease into their seasons a little bit. Justin Thomas seems to be ready to go from day one.
Yeah, and then he gets trending towards these no-cut events that come up during the swing season, absolutely blows everyone else out of the water. The problem is, if you take one of these very, very high-end guys, you then have to go scumming at the bottom, more than likely. I mean, you could build a somewhat balanced lineup, I suppose, of $7,000 guys. But if you wanted to get anyone else good into your lineup, you're then going to dive into the $6,000 area. And frankly, just looking at the 6Ks this week, not super appealing. So Would you ever consider building a lineup this week knowing that these are the best guys in this field and just avoiding the $10,000 range?
I don't think I'll avoid it completely. I think I'll have to avoid Justin Thomas and Patrick Cantlay. I think that's too steep. There is at least one or two guys that I think are playable down there in the $6,000 range, but I'm not super excited about it. I do, just like last week, and I feel like the week before, the 9K range has been pretty stacked to start the season. I'm willing to try to get a lot of guys in that range into my lineups. I don't need to go down and roster Tony Romo, who is actually min priced in this field. I don't want to have to do that. So I'll probably avoid the super high end of the 10Ks, but I really love Hideki. He's where I'd start.
So what happens to Tony Romo here if he ends up making the cut? Does that mean he's not calling a game on Sunday?
Oh, wow. That is a great question. Maybe he's just assuming he's going to miss the cut, right? I mean, at least he won't be like in the final group on Sunday. I wonder where his assignment is. Could he? I guess he couldn't even get out of there early enough. Yeah, I don't know what he would do. I'd love to see it.
Yeah, well, now we're in a situation where Tony Romo is entering events knowing he's not going to make the cut. Or if he does, he'll probably end up withdrawing after 3 rounds so he can go do his real job that he gets paid tens of millions of dollars to go to. You talk about this 9K range, though. We have Bryson at 9.9, Francesco Molinari at $9,700 coming over after playing Wentworth last week, which is really surprising to me. Brant Snedeker, Bjorn Hanan coming off a 3rd place finish. Morikawa, the first time we've seen him all year. Leishman is in the field currently despite a withdrawal from the previous tournament, the Greenbrier. Was it a withdrawal? Yeah, he ended up. Did he withdraw or miss the cut? I can't remember.
Yeah, he withdrew with a back thing.
All right, then you got Shez, Ryan Moore, Kevin Na. That is the entire $9,000 range. Now, when you spoke a little bit earlier about gaining strokes off the tee is super key here, but so is having accuracy. Ryan Moore actually lines up really well for this field. He was 2nd here last year too.
Yeah, I'm pretty polarized in this range. There's either guys I really like or really don't like. More probably for me falls on the don't like side of it because I feel like you're just paying for the 2nd place finish last year where he lost in a playoff, right? Like there's not much inspiring happening since that 2nd place finish. He's only finished top 10 in one time since then. He's only got 2 top 15s in that time frame. It just hasn't been a lot of good golf for Ryan Moore. Yes, he's going to hit a lot of fairways, which I think is going to be absolutely critical this week. I just think you're paying for his finish last year, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think that you might be right with that, but just looking how he's trended coming into this event, obviously that was his first start of the year a season ago, but the way that he ended this year, the results weren't necessarily there, but he's gained at least 3.5 strokes on approach in his past 3 tournaments. The putter has been absolutely cold for about 10 months at this point, but POA is his preferred putting surface. I actually like Ryan Moore a lot, and I think that people will see him as overvalued and not go to him. I don't know if he's going to come in with a ton of ownership here.
I do think on that side of it, if you want to pay the 9,100, especially because even Kevin Na's right there, and there's some other appealing options that are going to garner a lot more ownership. If you are willing to bank on, hey, this is a good situation for Moore. We've seen him play here in the past. I think you're going to get him at a really good ownership number.
So I'm guessing then you would rather go with like Shez Reavie over Ryan Moore.
Yeah, I mean, I do like Reavie. He doesn't have great course history here. He's just kind of racks up a bunch of top 15s and top 20s, but he feels like a really good course fit. He's leads the tour and obviously the field in driving accuracy. He's always pretty good with those irons. And, I've seen him win a golf tournament in the last handful of months, which is something you can't always say for a lot of these guys, which I think is noteworthy. So between Reavie at 92 and Kevin Na at 9,000, who I was waiting to see how he came back from that injury that ended his season a little bit early last year, and he played well enough at the Greenbrier, and he also has elite course history. I'll probably just kind of go on both sides of Ryan Moore here.
Okay, so what about the top end of this $9,000 range? Like Bryson has been awful for a while now, but his price is not quite slash, but you're getting a discount on him and his upside versus someone like Sung Jae, who is now more expensive. Sung Jae is turning in more consistent results. He's played well throughout the course of the first 2 events of the swing season, but Bryson's talent especially at a course like this, because he's still driving the ball really, really well, that if he can just get hot with the irons and sink a few putts, all of a sudden we know no one's going to own him. Is this a week to go to Bryson?
I'm not sure. I love being early on guys. I'm just really need to see it from probably both him and Francesco Molinari, who have done so little to inspire me to roster them, when guys who are in that range like Ben On, who Tita Green is one of the best players on the planet right now. He continues to put himself in contention. Yeah, I swear he's knocking on the door and he's going to find a win at some point. Like it would be really difficult for me to take a stand on Bryson or Molinari outside of the fact that it's like, hey, you're going to get him at single digit ownership. He's going to eventually win again. I just don't know when that's going to be. I can't. I don't have anything telling me it's going to be this week.
I'm good with fading Molinari at this track, just coming over from Europe on a very, very short week. Maybe that won't affect him. Maybe he's used to all this. His skill set is really good for this event, though, because he's one of the few shorter hitters. He's sort of like the good version of Ryan Moore when everything is clicking.
Yeah, I agree. There's something with Molinari, and I was kind of curious about this because we played the narrative of after he put the ball in the water on 12 at the final round of the Masters, like his season changed. And I actually went and looked it up. So before that round, he was gaining like 7 strokes total over the course of or per round. And after that, he was losing like 4/10 of a stroke. So he had like a 1.1 stroke swap after that round. I don't know if it was mental, but something hasn't been clicking for him since April. And yeah, throw in the fact that he's flying over here. We were kind of chatting about it. Like, I don't know what his incentive is. Maybe just to bank some cash and bank some FedEx Cup points. But in theory, it should be a pretty good fit. I don't know. I think that's a lot to ask.
Yeah, he was 14th at Wentworth a week ago. I want to see, and that's one of the features of Fantasy National, if you want to go look at it. Later in the week, obviously, is a bit better. On a Monday evening, we're not going to have a real sense of ownership. But after everything ends up coming out, I doubt very many people are going to use Molinari. But if he comes in like tracking sub 5%, I could see myself using him. And I'm going to play 20 lineups this week, even if it's 2 of 20. Just I think that he has enough upside and win equity in this field that it would be worth taking a shot. I don't want to go so in that it destroys all my lineups, but I would like to have that out if he decides like, hey, this is a tournament for me. Let's go.
Yeah, I think this 9K range, you're going to get pretty extreme ends of the ownership here. You mentioned it. It's very early in the week, even earlier than we normally do this, and it's one of those situations where you could get, Reevy could be pretty popular, Kevin Na could be pretty popular, and then you can get other guys at very low single digits. So I think GPPs will be one in this 9K range if you can figure it out.
All right, so if we had to rank our top 3 guys in the 9K range, I'll start. I actually like Ryan Moore the best, shockingly enough. So he's going to be my number 1 guy. I guess I'll say, do I like, you tell me, do I like Byun Hanan or Colin Morikawa better?
It's tight. I think it's Benny On. Like he's so good, Tita Green. I'm team no putt. He continues to put himself in position. Like I'm a Benny On guy here.
He has gained strokes putting in 2 consecutive events and he hasn't won. It feels like Sanderson Farms feels like a legit missed opportunity for, like, as someone who bets Ben On almost every single week and has done so for about 3.5 years now. It's becoming kind of frustrating. I'm not going to lie to you.
I do agree that I thought that was the one he was going to win. I thought he was going to win it last week, and it was like everything was coming together. He just played well all week long, and then just like I thought that was going to be the breakthrough win. I'm hoping he can kind of keep it going a little bit, but you're right. It feels like the one that got away a little bit.
Snedeker was also second here last year with Ryan Moore. I don't really have any particular feelings towards him. If it's going to be one of those weeks where he gets hot with the putter and like okay with the irons, he could definitely win this event. It's so hard to figure out when those weeks are coming.
Yeah, so I have a quick stat on Snedeker. Played pretty poorly last week and still finished 45th, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing that he didn't just whiff and go home on Friday. But that was only the second time in his last 15 starts that he hadn't gained strokes tee to green. And he hasn't had, and he also lost strokes on approach, and he hasn't lost strokes on approach for 2 straight tournaments dating back to last year's playoffs. So not the playoffs that just ended, the 2018 playoffs over a calendar year ago. So usually when he's struggling, especially with the irons, he can bounce back quickly. And maybe you give him a little bit of slack because it was his first start of the year. Maybe he's got to get his juices flowing a little bit. So I can feel like Snedeker, I'm more positive on Snedeker than I am negative on him.
All right. So do you think he's someone who'd crack your top 3 favorite plays from this range? Because I think I'm just going to go like I said, I'll go Morikawa because I think more people will lean on coming off the really good week, and then one of Bryson or Molinari, whichever one comes in with the lower end ownership. I'm leaning Molinari right now just because I like his skill set better for this course. But I think those would be my three from this range, weighted appropriately. Like I said, I'll be overweight on either Molinari or Bryson, but not substantially so, like double what the field has.
Yeah, we're usually much closer on these. I'd probably go Benny on. Then there's something about Kevin Na being only 9,000 that really kind of excites me. And then I would probably go, to me, Snedeker and Reeve are like super, super thin. I could do a coin flip on those guys.
The only thing about Reeve that scares me, I think ideally the skill set that we've talked about really does fit Chez Reeve. He's very good with his irons. He's going to hit every single fairway. The big drawback to him, and just looking through his numbers, is going to be the fact that he's bad around the greens. And you wouldn't think that around the green play would really factor in all that much this week, but just glancing back at the past two leaderboards from the previous 2 years, like there was only one player inside the top 15 last year that actually lost strokes around the green, and Reeve's almost a lock to lose strokes around the green in every tournament that he's in. Now, that just takes one chip in, and you're just going to be positive for the week. I mean, this stuff happens. A bad chipper, almost like a bad putter, just gets one lucky break, one 50-foot made, one chip hit made, and all of a sudden you're in the positives. But just over time, he's historically bad around the greens.
Yeah, and there's kind of a lot of guys that also fit that criteria. I mean, Ryan Moore is like the tiniest of positive around the green players. Colin Morikawa is a slight negative. Like there are some concerns if you're talking around the green, which I agree with you. It is probably the strokes gained stat that I don't want to say I don't know. It might have a smaller sample size than a lot of the other ones, right? And one chip in kind of changes a lot of things. But you're right. If it comes down to a chip off, I do not want Chez Reeve in my corner. That's for sure.
Yeah, just looking back at Chez's stats, like he gained 2.5 strokes around the greens at the Tour Championship, but in the 4 events before that, -4, -3.5, -2, -3.5. Like he can have a positive week like bad putters do and bad chippers do, but historically he's probably just going to lose strokes around the green to the field.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense. So I think you talked me into it. Maybe I'd give Snedeker the edge on Reeve and hope that Sneds was just easing into his season, and he's not going to have 2 bad weeks in a row because it's something he hasn't historically done.
Good news for your boy Ben An, though. Number 1 around the greens over the past 36 rounds. Very, very good touch around the greens all the time. Yeah, I love him too.
I'm loving him so much right now.
All right, I'm gonna use him. You just sold me. $8,000 range. Let's talk about these guys because I have 2 strong takes in this range. At the very top, we got the glove. Then Grillo, Answer, Piercy, Munoz coming off a win. He's still playing as of right now. Corey Connors, Kevin Streelman, Phil Mickelson making his season debut. Charles Howell III, and Bronson Burgoon at $8,000. My 2 guys here. Everyone's going to be off Corey Connors after he missed the cut last week. The ball striking was there. It turns out he can't putt, which we know, but, I'll go back to Corey Connors, and I'm doing it. I'm going to bet him to win, and I'm going to go overweight on him on DraftKings, Rick. Emiliano Grillo. He's won here before.
Oh, Pat, I mean, he's won here before is a pretty lame defense on most guys, especially Grillo, who literally flips the bird to the cup, man. I don't know. I think that the skill set obviously should fit this course because he is a past champion, but I cannot get remotely there on Grillo. You had me. We were cool with Connors, right? I was like, let's go back to Connors. He screwed everybody. He missed the cut on the number, and he missed like a 3.5 footer on 17. That was the only reason he didn't get through. We know he's bad at putting. Cool, let's go back to him. But you lost me on Grillo.
So the big case with Grillo is he actually played. Now, listen. If you're going to be on team no putt, I don't see how you can't be on team Grillo. Ball striking wise, even last week, he came 39th last week. He lost 6 strokes putting. So just make him putt +1 for the week, and he's probably going to come inside the top 5.
Oh man, he is the mascot for team no putt. Loses 5.5, loses 3, loses 5, loses 5. It's so brutal. You're right. He is team no putt approved, but I can't get there with him. I do like Streelman, who I guess is now going to carry a bunch of weight. ever since he should shoot like he go like 8 under, shoot a 64, and fly up the leaderboard on Sunday. I think he's probably going to be pretty popular. But if you want elite ball strikers, Pat, like Kevin Streelman's kind of that guy. Like has gained strokes off the tee in 19 of his last 22 starts. He's gained strokes on approach in 12 straight. Like he's 12th in driving accuracy. Like he just has the skill set that we would like. And now he's probably sniffing himself a little bit from that final round just yesterday. And I think it's going to kill his ownership for me. But that price is priced to move.
Yeah, I like Streelman. Like, it comes down to, and this will be an ownership play too, and he gained an awful lot of his strokes on the green last week making that charge. But anytime you can go that low, you're going to need a round like that sprinkled in. We know that Streelman is a guy that gets super hot, and when he gets hot, he remains hot for the entire round. That's how he's won tournaments on tour before. The one I'm really looking at is Scott Piercy, though. I like Piercy on POA, and he gained almost 9 strokes on approach at Greenbrier. He couldn't do anything else well. But if this is going to be a birdie fest, I always kind of like him in birdie fest. And if you go look at his numbers, he tends to back up a really strong approach week with another strong approach week. Then he goes into the tank, but he tends to have them in back-to-back starts.
I'm a little shocked it took us that long to get to Scott Piercy, but I agree with you. If he has the best birdie or better percentage out of that $8,000 range, he's going to hit enough fairways. You're absolutely right. His approaches are always stellar. So I think he is someone that brings a little more volatility to his outcomes, right? Like it could all go poorly for Scott Piercy this week, and we can see him finish, a tie for 138th, or he can actually contend in this thing. I'm more lukewarm on Piercy than I am most weeks, which I think is noteworthy.
Yeah, so for the 8K guys for me, it's going to be Griot, Connors, and Piercy. I think those maybe be the only 3 that I'll use. I'll fade Kevin Streelman to my... it's no fun trying to fade a guy who everyone's going to be on and sets up really well, but sometimes you got to pull the trigger on a move like that. You think Munoz can back this up at all?
No. I mean, listen, I mean, we kind of like knock the champion from last week in almost all cases, let alone a guy who just got his first win. Like, I think you should just withdraw the week after you win. Like, go answer your text messages, go answer your phone calls, go do all that stuff. Don't try to come over here and do anything special. Just take the week off. You got like an extra $1 million in your pocket.
I'm not going to do the research on it. Maybe you want to, but if you could somehow classify like good winners versus bad winners, maybe just say like top 40 in the world win and see how they do the next week after a victory versus outside of the top 40 in the world and see how they do the next week after a victory. I'd be curious to see what those results are if they play in the next event that week.
Yeah, it would be really interesting because there's certainly guys, and I think you have to break it down that way because there's guys, and we saw Molinari kind of, I don't think it was exactly back-to-back weeks, but like guys like that who might be used to winning or have a better pedigree, they can usually back it up. It's, a win is ho-hum for them in some cases, but, life-changing things like Munoz and I mean, Neiman even made the cut last week. I was kind of impressed with that because when you have a life-changing event like that, it's probably hard to get back to golf.
The only other guy is at the flat $8,000 range. He was 6th last week, so I do think that he will carry ownership, but he gained over 8 strokes on approach. It's Bronson Burgooni, the hey, you guys of the Safeway Open this week. He's a nice price. He putts really well on POA, gained on approaches in 6 consecutive events. We know he can light it up in birdie or better percentage. He's a hard guy to trust ever, but DK scoring-wise, he tends to always outperform his finishing position.
He absolutely does, and it's very early in the week, and I've already kind of seen his name pop up a couple times, so I think he's going to carry quite a bit of ownership. But yeah, it's a flat 8. He's pretty flexible. That's a number that I kind of like. I usually like to have somebody in the high 7s, low 8s. It gives you a little wiggle room, and they're usually so when you go through and look at like what 10K golfers should return, what 9K, what 8K, that range, that like 78 to 82 is actually one of the most valuable ranges. Like guys aren't priced right there for whatever reason. So I usually try to get 1 or 2 of those guys in my lineup, and Burgoon will certainly be a target this week. But yeah, I'm worried about his ownership, and I'm worried that he can let you down in a heartbeat.
Yeah, the big thing for me last week, I had a lot of Harris English, but I had no Munoz. And those were 2 guys that fell exactly in that range that you were talking about.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. I mean, the pricing is has gotten pretty efficient, but like it's the guys in the 6K that you can get to just make the cut obviously become critically valuable, and then like that second tier, that 8,000 range, or I guess maybe it's even the third tier, is like there's if you can find the gem there, you can put yourself in some serious contention.
Well, it also works out too. Like almost back to my question off the top is if you wanted to fade the entire 10K range. I'm not saying with every lineup, but even with a few, and you wanted to start with on or more, or whoever you like best in the nine from 9,500 and below, like then your lowest price players are the guys in this range that we're talking about right now. And that balanced lineup, even thinking to yourself like, hey, these big name guys, they're here. They're probably getting some sort of sponsors check. Maybe they're not completely checked into the season yet. That if those guys don't pop, like let's say Justin Thomas finishes 8th and Hideki finishes 17th. You don't necessarily have to have those guys in your lineup. And I feel more comfortable with the consistency of some of these guys than the ones at the very bottom.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. When I'm always a little worried. Like when I set my lineups and I submit them, and I'm like, wow, like my last two guys are absolute garbage, and I'm just begging for them to make the cut. These are guys that actually have a little bit more upside. That like we've seen from Burgoon, a top 10 or something like that, where you capture one of those, you're moving up the leaderboards in quite a big way. You're not as stars and scrubby, and you're not just like praying for a made cut, especially now with the carnage that the new cut rules seem to have put on us the last couple of weeks.
Did you get any 6 of 6s last week?
No, Pat, I barely had any 2 of 6s through. Last week was really bad. I did well at the Greenbrier, and I got a couple of 6 of 6s through, but it is like it was hard before, right? It was only, I don't know what it was, like 8% or something like that last year. I think we're hovering closer to like 4 or 5 this year. It's really tough to get 6 through. I like it because I hated the MDF, but it can be carnage at times.
Yeah, I had 0 of 20 lineups with 6 of 6. In my single entry lineup that I had, and which was my best lineup, somehow I picked my best of 20 to put into a single entry. It was 5 of 6, and do you know who the 6th man in was?
Connors?
Matt Jones, who withdrew.
With the WD. I saw a couple of lineups like that looked really good, except he pulled out. That's no good.
Yeah, I needed Scotty Scheffler to do more if I actually had a chance of winning some serious money with the 5 of 6. Alas, he did not. Although he really should be playing in this tournament with the way that he's striking the ball. Like this tournament sets up perfectly for him, but now he's nowhere to be found.
Yeah, I don't know. How did these guys come up with their schedule, right? Like, I understand you want to play a lot, but like, why is he taking this week off? Is he like, he doesn't want to go to Napa? Like, I don't understand. I would love to be a fly on the wall for some of these guys as they're setting their schedule. I bet you a lot of them are just like Sung Jae's like, oh, rack them all up or whatever. But I would love to see what goes into deciding where they're going to show up each week.
Yeah, Sung Jae just decides, hey, is there a golf event this week? I'll play that one. Outside of that, though, I think it would be a huge boost. And just talking like business-wise, maybe we're revealing too much here, but I think I've talked about this before. Like, if you hired yourself like an analytics coach, especially when you're coming off the web.com tour, or a realization of like what you're really good at, like what is your specific skill set? What do you do better than anyone else on tour? And then figure that out and try to correlate it with different tournaments and different courses. Well, you'll like everyone wants to play the Masters. I get that. But when it comes to stuff like this, Scheffler would have been better off playing this event than playing the Sanderson Farms.
Yeah, and you really could optimize it because I'm sure there's plenty of data around like, okay, work in one rest week every X number, and I'm sure it's different for every player, but like you could really figure this out across, hey, here's travel, here's rest, here's the tournaments that are, or the courses that are best going to set up for you. Go print your money, and at least you've put a lot of thought into it. Sometimes I think these guys just like, I mean, some of them don't have the luxury of being able to choose. They just have to show up every week and hope they can cut a paycheck. But even the guys that can, like, there's plenty of guys who should be taking a few weeks off and scheduling this out more optimally.
Let's talk about the $7,000 range. At the very top, we have Harris English is just kind of kicking it right there. I used him last week. He has 2 top 10 finishes to start the year. I'm going to go back to him this week. I like Harris English. He's 79. Fratelli killed it with approach last week. Former champ Kevin Tway's mixed in at 7,700. Troy Merritt's back from Europe. He's also at 77. Hadwin's in this field, who's super low. The champ is here. He's at $7,400. I hate that fucking commercial, by the way. Brendan Steele, 2-time winner of this event, 74. Kyle Stanley's back in after missing the cut last week. We We heard Doc Redman's name pop up as it pertained to birdie or better percentage. Like, what are you looking at in the $7,000 area? Because right now I have Harris English, and I think I might turn to Johnny Vegas.
Interesting. In this range, I'm usually looking for pretty specific skill sets. I don't mind Harris English. I'm actually shocked he's not priced a little bit higher. He's got two really good finishes in a row. I thought he could have been kicked up into like even the mid eights with some of those guys up there. But I'm looking for specific skill sets, and the one that jumps out to me the most is Nate Lashley, who's $7,600. So he's only played once this year, which was a third place finish at the Greenbrier. He had a 17th place finish when he played here in Napa last year, but he's got like two of the main stats that the correlation model that I run thinks is going to be critically important, where he's very accurate off the tee, but he's not a very good, like if you look strokes gained off the tee, he loses because he's so short, but he hits every single fairway. And then he goes out and makes a ton of birdies. He's one of the best players in the field in terms of birdie or better. We've seen him get scorching hot at times like he did to go run away with the Rocket Mortgage. So like he's someone that I think is actually priced incorrectly. He's a PGA Tour winner in a field that can't boast a lot of.
Yeah, so just digging into the custom stat model that I set up on Fantasy National, my first run of this, he pops out as number 16th over the past 24 rounds, 18th in the field in approach, 22nd in par 5 scoring, 12th in par 4 scoring, and he's actually 21st in eagle rate as well, despite not being a long hitter. So I completely get on board with that. I like Lashley now. Thank you for bringing him up.
Yeah, he's probably, I don't know how you build your lineup, Pat. If you start at the top, if you start at the bottom or wherever, but I start where basically like the guy that I want to have, like I can't live without this guy, whether no matter what his price is. Sometimes it's 12,000, sometimes it's 6. Lashley almost feels like that guy this week because I just think he's priced incorrectly. Like I could absolutely whiff on this, but I think he's the biggest mistake here.
He does actually, the way that you talk it up, and especially after that performance at the Greenbrier, he does seem somewhat undervalued. The way that I tend to construct my lineups is I go through each of the tiers of pricing, usually by 10,000, 9,000, or maybe group those two together, knowing like if I take these guys, I can only have 2 of these guys in the 9s or 1 of these guys in the 10s. And then I submit like all my stars on Fantasy National, and then I go into the lineup generator. I'm like, well, I want to be overweight on this guy in particular. And then I'll build my groups. Like, every single one of my lineups needs to feature at least one of these 3 guys in them. They can have all 3 of them, but it could only have 1 in them. I want to have exposure to these 3 guys, my 3 favorite plays of the week. Now, some week that's 2 guys, some week it's 5 guys, and each lineup has to have 2 of these 5 guys or whatever it is in it. But that's generally how I go about constructing my lineups.
I like that. I think that's very logical to know, hey, just the natural way to build these. I'm going to have a couple of guys come from this area and that area. I think that's pretty logical. And then you're only really comparing them, as I understand it, comparing them against like other peers, basically other players in that tier.
Yeah, so like if I give more weight to someone like Nate Lashley over Adam Hadwin, let's say I end up using them both, but I put one at like 35%, one at 10%, I probably won't get exactly those percentages when everything comes out, but the lineup generator will know I like this player more than this player, so give specific weighting to that guy. But I don't disclude the other guy, because when I used to build by hand, let's say I really loved Lashley this week and I also liked Hadwin a little bit, I would just be like, oh, I like this guy up top and I like Nate Lashley, and I just basically throw him into every lineup and try to figure it out after, and then you don't get enough exposure to those other guys. Like, if I play 20 lineups, do I really need 16 Nate Lashley lineups? Probably not.
Yeah, it's hard to trick your brain when you're manually like trying to decide, like, well, I've already said I like Lashley, why would I not put him in every single lineup? I've struggled with that issue as well. And you mentioned Johnny Vegas, who was another guy that I kind of had like a little star next to because he hits the ball so well off the tee. He's a little more inaccurate when it comes to hitting fairways than I would like, but he does a lot of things well. He's a great ball striker. Again, when you compare him to the other guys in the $7,000 range, I think he's significantly better than some of these guys. So he was another guy that I agreed with you on there, Pat.
Yeah, I like him a lot. He rates out number 17th in this model. He's 9th in ball striking over the past 36 rounds, 1st in par 5 scoring, 3rd in birdies or better gained, 1st in eagle rate, 10th on par 4s from 400 to 450 yards. You always worry about his chipping and putting, but I'm less concerned about that stuff at 7,300 than I am at 9,500.
Yeah, and he is there's only a handful of guys that their birdie or better percentage is over like, I don't know, 23%, which is a pretty good number in this range. It's like Cameron Champ, who I'm not touching. Johnny Vegas is in there.
Redmond.
Cameron Tringale is in there, if that interests you. And then, of course, Kevin Chappell. I don't know if he's got another 59 in him, but I guess, of course, he's going to show up in that stat as well.
How do you approach someone like Kevin Chappell, knowing he's coming off the injury? He flashes a 59, but his entire season is essentially that one round where he was any good.
Yeah, and honestly, the other 3 rounds were pretty crappy. I think he was over par in each of the other 3, at least the last 2. I don't know. I think it's a little bit of magic for him to go out and shoot a 59. I will be continuing to take the wait and see approach. I need to see more, because one historic memorable round and 3 really crappy ones, while awesome and while I was stoked for it, doesn't inspire me to roster him that much.
The only 2 other guys I have real interest in this mid-7 range is Hadwin, who just puts the lights out on POA. And if we are gravitating towards, well, me with Ryan Moore, but you talked about someone like Streelman, Hadwin is in that skill set as well, as someone who hits mostly every fairway and can get super hot with the irons. And if you do look at his putting splits, he dominates POA.
Yeah, I like that a lot, and we've seen him get scorching hot. Now it is a new season, Pat. What are we doing with Luke List? Is this over? Are we done?
I have full disclosure. He's down to 110 to 1 to win this week. It goes from 33 last week. Now I can be in on that. I can put my $10 on him to win, $10 on the each way, and just feel good if he has a good week. Now I don't need to use him on DraftKings.
Okay, that's probably pretty smart. The other guy that I thought popped up for me, Austin Cook, just very accurate. Obviously, we're down at 7 flat, so he has a lot of other flaws to his game. But I really think it's going to be critical to be in the fairway. It's short, but from what I remember, there's a lot of kind of like natural ways to play this, and you kind of have to lay back off the tee on some of these. So you start to get guys who hit from the same range. I don't think driving distance or lack thereof is going to be such a detriment this week, which is why Lashley, gets me excited, or Reevy, guys that don't normally hit the ball a long way. Like that, usually most weeks that's an absolute detriment. This week it might not be. So I think some of these guys down here are way more in play, because this is fairly unique. We only see courses that don't promote the bomb and gouge. We don't see that too often anymore.
So the only 2 other guys, one is, the statistical revelation that is Joel Damon, although he's backed off a little bit, but he's another guy who hits a ton of fairways. And then Carlos Ortiz, who pops up every time they play in California, coming off a good week as well in Mississippi.
He does. He's just so volatile, right? Like if you're willing to take that on, he's the king of. I mean, last time we saw a great finish, he finished 5th, and then he missed the cut the next week. He finished 4th last week. Is he going to miss the cut this week? He's had trouble backing these up. I do generally like the style of play of Carlos Ortiz, but I'm really worried that the one kind of intangible that we don't have in the spreadsheets, so to speak, is how inconsistent he is. So I think if you're willing to take on someone who is high risk, high reward in this spot, as opposed to just trying to plug in someone for a little bit of safety, I think you should consider Carlos Ortiz. I might not get there, but I couldn't blame you for it.
He has made the cut here in each of his 3 previous appearances, but no finish better than T30. So he's kind of all over the place. And listen, if you got a T30 from Carlos Ortiz, if you used him, you'd probably be pretty happy with it. But at his price point, I want better than that, for upside at least.
Yeah, I mean, even just scrolling through here, I mean, there's kind of like Brendan Steele is in here, who I won't play.
Well, okay, should we be playing Brendan Steele? Like, is this just his course?
I don't know if I believe that. Does he stinks at golf, all things considered. So does one weekend every September he shows up in Napa and knows how to play? I have such a difficult time believing that something like that exists. I think he played really well for 2 weekends across 2 years, and I don't know, he hasn't done much in the interim. I can't get there. I don't think so.
Any love for Sung Kang?
I always have love for Sung Kang. I mean, guy who can win on tour. I mean, there's some guys down here that I think are great, just I'm long-term optimistic about. So they always kind of get sprinkled into a lot of the lineups that I play, like Sung Kang, Doc Redman, guys that I think are generally better golfers than some of the scrubs that you might see down towards the lower end of this. Like, yeah, I tend to get them in my lineup because I'm a believer in them long-term. I don't know if it's this week specifically for Sung Kang, but I do generally like him. I'm optimistic.
Ball striking wise and birdies are better gained. Hot fire Dylon Fratelli. Very nice weekend over at the Sanderson Farms. He's also a really inconsistent player as well, but he's at the very high end of the $7,000 range. Do you think you would use him over Streelman or Harris English or the other guys at the top that you like?
I did see Fratelli, and it was interesting because he led the field last week in strokes gained approach by like a million. Like he ran away with it. He was so good. And that to me is something I do try to carry over, and it's a little stickier week to week. So I don't know if I'd get him there over like I mean, I guess maybe over like I'm trying to find reasons to not play Streelman, quite honestly, because I just think he's going to be too popular, but I like the way his stats fine. Like if there's going to be someone I pivot off of, it's probably going to be Streelman, and Fratelli or somebody like that. Yeah. Who had a really great display last week in a stat that I'm super stoked about, like strokes gained approach. Like, yeah, that would be very natural for me to do.
Is there a way that Tom Hoagie can actually put together 4 rounds?
No, because there's very little evidence of it. I mean, I know he had the good finish at the Greenbrier.
Yeah.
Then he's playing well, but like it's just long term. Something always pops up where he can't finish the job.
All right, let's jump into the 6K range here. It's not great, man. Jason Duffner is someone who popped up for me, and I don't like that at all.
I don't really like many of these guys. Duffner, wow. I guess the only guy that really, when I was going through this, I saw was Adam Long because
me too.
Giving weight to a winner and a guy who has played now twice over the course of the swing season. He's got a 14th and a 23rd. He was actually on the PGA Tour Live. So I actually saw a lot of his rounds last week, and he looked pretty solid. He played strong because he played with Corey Connors, I think. So those guys were on the telecast. So he's probably a guy that I would go to if I needed to down here at 6,900. But you're right, man. It is ugly. The Gooch is here, which the Gooch is accurate. He's 10th in approaches. He's like I actually would bet him with like an each way or something like that, or a top 10 bet, but we're pretty deep into it right now.
Yeah, I'm looking at like Henry Higgs in 2 starts so far this year. He was 19th at the Greenbrier. He missed the cut last week, but still gained over 2.5 strokes ball striking. It was just 3 strokes lost around the green. Not great, Henry Higgs. But maybe if the ball striking comes into play, you don't have to chip all that much. I don't know. Like, who was the other one that I found down here? Yeah, Duffner, Long, Higgs, Gooch. Sam Ryder was the other one. His irons have kind of come back a little bit.
Okay, that's not bad. I mean, just to kind of put into perspective, like I'm scrolling through this, there's like 24 guys that have missed the cut in both of these swing season events already. So like I'm scrolling through, it's like red next to all these guys for 2 straight starts. It's like there's so little, and some of them we've never even seen before, right? So there were weeks, I think it was the Greenbrier, I really liked the 6K range. I thought that the pricing was a little weird because we didn't know what was coming out of the Korn Ferry Tour. Now we know a little bit more, and you were talking about the build and having to maybe stay away from this range. Like it's becoming more and more appealing to go with a balanced lineup when you start to look under $7,000.
Yeah, that was the whole just thought process behind that. Like I'm going to sort by 12 rounds here and see if anyone pops up in the ball striking department from down in the $6,000 range, because maybe that's just the key to go with it. Like even if I sort by 400 to 450, the only guy that pops up from the 6K range is Tyler McCumber, who I could not pick out of a lineup.
He's played like twice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he was, he gained at Sanders.
That's the PGA Tour analyst's kid.
Oh, really?
His first name, but McCumber, yeah. The guy who does, I think he does PGA Tour Live or something like that. That's his kid.
Yeah, Gooch pops up in that range as well for like key par 4s. The best one on approach over the past is Tyler Duncan, actually, who has like a top 10 at this event 2 years ago. Brian Stewart was good with his wedges last week. Other than that, yeah, Michael Thompson. This isn't Bermuda grass, so don't play Michael Thompson. Maybe Doc Redman's like a guy we have to go to then. I mean, you talked about him lighting it up. Birdies are better. He's decent with approaches. He's cheap.
Yeah, he might be. I mean, I guess the last guy, I don't think I can go below 68, quite frankly. So Adam Long's in play. Talk about Sepp Straka. He's usually a good ball striker. He makes a lot of birdies when he plays. I mean, I'm not thrilled about it, but if I was super desperate, I'd probably play one of those two guys because it starts to get really ugly. I mean, John Daly's in this field.
And
Bo
Tony
Van
Romo.
Pelt's in this field. And Bo Van Pelt hasn't played a golf tournament in like 3 years, and he's in this field.
Oh man, I used to love BVP. He used to be my guy. He used to be awesome. He's essentially
He's min-priced.
Yeah, but yeah, it's not like 7 years ago.
Yeah, well, of course, right. I mean, him, John Daly, Tony Romo, they're all min-priced in this field. There's actually, I mean, I'm not playing any of them, but there are guys who have played the last 2 weeks, have made the cut. Like
I have one.
Vince Covelli, $6,000.
Oh, Smelly Covelli?
Yeah.
My guy is Mark Anderson at $6,200. He gained 3.5 strokes on approach last week, T28 at Sanderson Farms. Gained just under 2 strokes on approach at the Greenbrier, came T36. He's made 2 cuts in a row, and he's not just doing it off the strength of a really strong putting performance. I don't know if he has the driving chops to do everything. Do you have any info on whether he hits fairways or not?
What is he, 6,200?
Yeah, I can look it up right now. Let's see. Fairways gained. He was minus 7.5 strokes fairways gained last week, but positive 1.5 at the Greenbrier. But those are super wide fairways, so I'd imagine not the most accurate driver of the ball long term.
Yeah, I've got 54 measured rounds on him all time. Dates back. I mean, this dates back a while, but he's a losing player. He loses 0.14 strokes off the tee. He loses per round.
Yeah, that's not.
He actually loses in every single category.
Yeah, well, maybe he's figured something out with his irons in this young season. The problem is when we weight things like strokes gained approach, those get weighted against the fields you're in, and these have not been 2 very good fields.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Tony Romo actually gains a half a stroke around the greens in all of his measured rounds, which I think is only 2. I think he chipped in and got that one, but he's the only stat he's positive in.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find anyone else down here, like Mark Anderson.
Satoshi Kodaira's in this one?
Kodaira is, but this isn't like a heritage type of course, so you probably can't use Kodaira. What about Chase Seifert? We go to Chase Seifert?
I liked Chase Seifert. I was actually a week early on him at the Greenbrier because he had played. He was one of the only few guys who came up from the Korn Ferry Tour and had played the Greenbrier in the past, and he shot some low round there. So I was a week early on him. He missed the cut there, and then he actually played pretty well last week. He's a little bit more seasoned than some of the other Korn Ferry guys. He actually has PGA Tour experience. I actually do not mind Chase Seifert.
All right, Chase Seifert. What about that cheater guy, Zhang Zhang?
Oh yeah, where's he at? 64?
Yeah, he gained on ball striking last week. He made the cut. He's gained 2 strokes on approach in each of his first 2 tournaments.
Wow, that's actually pretty good. Yeah, I mean, I liked your Mark Anderson just because the 2 made cuts. I mean, George McNeil, I don't think I'd go back to him, would you? 6th place finish last week.
He is 9,000 years old.
Yeah, he looks like it hurts when he swings.
Yeah, because he's super old.
His body, his back is just cracking every time. It makes my back hurt.
Yeah, I mean, Pat Perez is $6,600.
Wow, well, he used to be the king of the birdie or better. Has he ever played here? Not in a while.
He was injured most of last year. He has played as recently as the Northern Trust, so that's it wasn't that long ago. It was a month ago, but maybe a little bit of time off. He gained strokes off the tee once in any tournament last year, and it was at the AT&T Pro-Am where he missed the cut, which actually only measures 1 round. So that's not great.
No, that's not ideal for Pat Perez. Oh man, yeah, I'm just scrolling through. I'm trying to find those rounds. I'm scrolling through it. It's red. That's pretty ugly for him.
The only other ones, there's a pair of Canadians, David Hearn and Mackenzie Hughes. They do things every 5 tournaments.
Yeah, Ben Martin's in this field, but God, he's so bad.
Did you know? Oh, how about this? Maybe David Hearn actually is a play here. Gained on ball striking and made the cut in the first 2 events of the year, and has actually gained on approaches in 7 consecutive events on tour. That's not bad for 60.
That's not
whatever.
bad, and he's very accurate off the tee, right? I mean, he hits a ton of fairways.
Yeah, so David Hearn, there's a guy, $6,500. Mark Anderson, David Hearn, and Adam Long. They're your 6K guys.
That was tough to get to. That was really tough to get to.
I mean, I would go back to Andrew Landry, but the guy is just like costing me my mortgage the past 2 weeks.
I knew you were going to say Andrew Landry. I didn't want to bring it up. I know. I'm not playing him either. That ship has sailed. Someone started like tweeting me like, "Oh, your boy Landry," and I knew that was an intervention for me. I knew it had gone too far, Pat. So I'm like, all right, if someone actually associates him with being my boy, I got to be out on this.
Maybe so, but the last time I didn't use Andrew Landry, like that I seriously, like, I'm going to use Andrew Landry. No, I can't. He screwed me over too many times. He came like 5th at John Deere or something.
Yeah, he finished 3rd, and he has a top 10 2 years ago in Napa. Oh, by the time Thursday comes around, you'll absolutely be on him.
Maybe I'll just bet him first round leader, and hopefully he just gets real hot for the first round.
There you go. Hope he gets one of those like early morning tee times where there's still a little dew out there and he can go shoot something real low.
There was like a pretty pronounced split last week. Like if you had stacked the morning wave on Thursday, that actually turned out to be, I mean, at least all my guys from the PM wave missed the cut. So I just assumed all the guys from the AM wave made the cut.
Yeah. So they had, when was the rain delay? Thursday or Friday afternoon? I don't remember.
It was Thursday afternoon.
Whichever that wave was.
Yeah.
So that wave, right. And then, there would have been a pretty big split because they had to come back the next morning and finish it up.
Any bets you're looking at here, just to kind of quickly scroll through like the betting odds? Justin Thomas is 6.5 to 1. Like, do you think you'll be betting any of the favorites here? Because I wouldn't.
I already bet Hideki
at 16.
I'm just like so in on that. If he actually figured out how to putt, I think he's gonna scorch earth. And then I'm kind of really looking at. I'm interested in Streelman. I saw him at 60, and then other than that, I'll probably just fire a couple like I like the guys I love. I don't think can win, right? Like Taylor Gooch, even Nate Lashley, who I've seen win. I'd much rather get we don't have the each way, but like to kind of do it ourselves with like top 5 and top 10 stuff. I'd much rather get some exposure to them that way because I don't know if they can necessarily win it.
Yeah, that's actually not a terrible way to play it. I played 4 top 20 bets last week, and Zach Sucker came inside the top 20 at 9 to 1, and that really does pay off. It basically just made me break even. Like if I hadn't have bet Euro, it may be just slightly up on the PGA, down for the week because Finau didn't end up winning. But like you don't think that because we think about golf, it's like 250 to 1, 100 to 1. Like a good 9 to 1 bet is pretty good for a top 20.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's better odds than if you pick Justin Thomas to win this week. I mean, and there's a little margin for error there because you get like the T20, right? That could be like 24 guys. Like that's pretty good. It's a small field. I've actually been pretty impressed with the odds you can get on some of those bets. They're not as bad as you think, but I mean, there's a lot of times like I know it's possible, but like you're pretty much burning your money on a 250 to 1 outright. Like it's just like I'd much rather get, because if they vastly succeed expectations and finish 3rd and you get none of that upside, like it's burning cash.
Yeah, I mean, I usually just do it for the each way odds, but a part of my mantra for the new season is to stop betting guys that are 250 to 1 and just play the top 20s instead. It just makes a lot more logical sense.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. I think that's where the returns are. I mean, these guys pop up all the time. There's always Zach, what's his name? Suker. Like he's like popping up, winning top 20 bets. Like that's great.
So the guys that I would look at this week are kind of the ones that we laid out. So Seifert, Duncan, Mark Anderson, Tyler McCumber, like they're all going to be like 15 to 1 top 20. That's if you just played those 4 and you get lucky with one of them. I mean, you win 4 to 1 on your money, or 5 to 1.
That's beauty.
Money. Yeah, like that. Yeah. That's what we're looking for here.
Exactly.
But
when you do the first round leaders, do you wait for tee times, or are you just like looking for guys that are going to get hot? What are you looking for? Give us the deets.
Rick, I'm not going to lie to you. It depends on the week. If I feel like real antsy, I'll get some first round leader bets in. I prefer to wait for the tee times and look at the weather just in case there is an advantage and then try to explore. I've had more success doing that, but like I told you, half the weeks I forget.
Yeah. And I usually do it like when the lines first come out. I'm like, oh, let me click like these 5 names and throw something in, and then I forget about it until it's like Thursday afternoon. I'm like, oh shit, did I have any of these guys? Like I looked at that name. I could have this guy. I don't know until I log in and actually check on it.
So for me, the bets that I've actually put in so far, I have Griot at 45 to 1, Connors at 45 to 1, and Luke List with the each way at 110 to 1. I don't anticipate playing a very large card this week.
No, I don't think so either. Corey Connors is going to win this. I can't wait. It's going to be so great when he wins this thing.
I will be very happy. My bank account will be very happy, and then everyone who killed me last week for taking Corey Connors, after they don't listen this week and he wins, they're gonna rue the day. Rick, it's gonna happen.
I love it. I love it. Can't wait.
I'm trying to find where's Adam Hadwin on this. Adam Hadwin is 80 to 1. Really? He used to be good.
Yeah, that's actually surprising, but I mean, it makes sense because Nate Lashley is also 80 to 1, and they're like the same DraftKings price, which makes sense. So as I'm scrolling through this, yeah, I'm actually kind of shocked both those guys are.
Yeah, Kevin Tway is 70 to 1. He won this, I believe, at 80 to 1 last year. It's funny to see that he's not getting a bump for being a previous winner here.
Yeah, but the guys that he played in the playoff and all that stuff are getting the bump.
Yeah,
he hasn't done anything.
The Moores and Snedegers are all getting it up. All right, Rick, thank you for being on the line. Let everyone know what you're up to because it's a lot of golf these days.
Yeah, a lot of golf. Just a lot of tools, right? I mean, putting tools on DFS on demand and updating everything and doing a lot of content these days, which you can find on Rick Rungood YouTube channel or just Twitter at Rick Rungood. It's all there.
All right, you can follow me at the PME on Twitter, on Facebook, and hey, I have an Instagram giveaway going on as well. Follow me on Instagram at the PME. Heart one of the golf or football pitchers that pops up onto the feed and leave your DraftKings handle in the comment section. You'll be in that draw for 20 DK bucks, just like you will if you smash the like. Leave your DraftKings handle. Tell me your 2 favorite guys below $6,000. And there's not many of them this week. You'll probably just have to copy Rick and I's guys unless someone really stands out to you. That and leave an audio review, 5 stars for the podcast, DraftKings handle, and something nice about the show. And the winners will be announced on next Monday's football show, 1 p.m. Eastern Time on the DraftKings YouTube channel. I'm Pat Mayo. You can find my DK cheat sheet up on DKPlaybook.com on Tuesday. My betting cheat sheet I'll tweet out, and it will be up on my Facebook page on Wednesday afternoon. Good luck at the Safeway Open. Enjoy them Poa Greens and the California sun and the Napa Valley wine. I'll see you next time.
Mayo experience! Experience!